Hi there, it's Charlotte Smith. Thank you so much for being here. I want to make sure I'm on everywhere. Today I'm going to talk about burnout on the farm. But before I get to that, I want to just mention that I'm hopping on a plane tomorrow morning, headed to Kentucky, where I'm going to teach a workshop on Friday with Joel Salatin called The Profitable Farm, just like my Facebook group. And the day before, I'm meeting up with several of our marketing students from our Farm Marketing from the Heart course, and also people from the Profitable Farm. It's a free meetup. We're just getting together at somebody's farm there. It's going to be like a beautiful quintessential Kentucky farm. So I'm just so excited for this time and opportunity to meet my community in person. It's always such a great blast. All right, but let's get into today's topic. I wrote a recent blog post on burnout on the farm and 6 ways I help prevent it or deal with it if I forgot to prevent it. I'm sharing those 6 ways. Everyone does it a little differently, but these are ideas that have worked for me. Anyway, it got so much interest and feedback, and the video I did received like 1,000 views in 2 days, which is more than twice my normal videos. Views are like 500 in 2 days. So what that tells me is it's something that people are really interested in because they're burnt out. And I know this because I get the emails from you. I see the comments in our Facebook groups about it. It's hard to avoid on the farm because the farm is always around you. There's always a million projects. And even if I try to take a day off and not schedule anything, I think to myself, well, I have a day off. I didn't schedule anything, so it's a good day to clean the barn or whatever. So those things creep in, and many of us have jobs off the farm. Many of us have kids. Little kids are a lot more work, but older kids take time too. Like last summer, we were planning a wedding in our yard for my daughter, which was like another part-time job. So no matter how old your families are, there's always those things, and our husbands and cooking and all that. So burnout is a real thing. And sometimes what's really sad, and I hate to see happen, is when farmers will email me and say, I'm burnt out, I'm stopping, I'm quitting. And I get those comments. Those comments were on this blog post too. And those comments are emailed to me as well. And then our communities lose another farmer selling this food that is so hard to produce, or whatever your products are. You know, if it's certain breeds of animals and wool and all these handcrafted things that you can't get in our stores, our community loses that when you get burnt out and throw in the towel. It happens all the time, and I want to help you try to avoid it. So let me just pull up my notes here. Find me. Make sure you can't hear me twice. Okay, great. And I'm going to go over the ideas that work for me. So another thing to remember is a lot of people say, well, I'll rest in the winter, or I will do that in the winter. And so there tends to really be no off season. Like you might think, oh, I have an off season when things slow down, then I'll get a break or I'll take some time off. But we have so many things that pile up. At least I know I end up working year round, especially because I operate a dairy. So that's 365 days a year. So if we aren't getting our off season like we thought we would on the farm, what are some other things we can do? One of the first things I realized when I started my farm 10 years ago, I did everything myself for the first 6 months, and my youngest was 3 years old. And I thought, oh, it'll be a nice second income. You know, my husband worked a job and this would be a good second income, but I was working 7 days a week. And the kids were making their own breakfast, which is fine. They could learn to make their own breakfast, but I wasn't there with them. You know, it was really difficult. And I knew that I needed to hire help. It was absolutely unsustainable. So that's the first thing I did. And that is really important. Now, I've chosen to hire help. You might decide that you want to try a woofer or an intern, but I haven't, and those are totally viable models that work for people. But I've chosen to hire help just because on the raw milk dairy, I want people to be highly trained, which means I need someone long-term. I can't have someone for 2 weeks. You know, I need help actually milking the cows. And since it's raw, I want to make sure they are an expert at it, which means I want them there long-term. So I chose to hire help. Now, help in my area, we pay our employees $15 to $25 an hour. So the price of my product has to reflect that and be able to cover that. So what that meant was I had to make sure my milk was priced accordingly so I could hire help. And at first I hired someone to relieve me 2 days a week, and it's gradually grown over the years, because then when you get to managing and operating or managing the farm and taking care of marketing and all that, you still can't do it all. You can't get all the farm chores done. So I've worked myself out of milking. Now I've got people handling the milking 7 days a week. But again, it's been 10 years. So hire some help. And then number 2, these are in no real specific order. You can do them at any time. But number 2 is related to number 1, and that could be you need to raise your prices, because many people say that, they need to be able to pay themselves first before they hire help. Raise your prices. I've never met a farmer selling direct to consumer where I've said, hey, your prices are too high, you should lower them. Most of us are not making the margins we need to make, which, 35 to 40% profit margin is what you should expect. And many farmers write me and say they're not making any profit. So let me look over here. See, I got some comments, so I got to make it so I can see them. Oh, good. Yay, I've got people here live. And Cindy, hi, Cindy. Oh, thank you, Maggie, for being here. Maggie's my wonderful assistant. So thanks, everyone. She's such a great help. All right, so raise your prices. And often you can't just pay minimum wage where you are. I think I covered that with what I first said. We pay $15 to $25 an hour, because minimum wage, they can go get a cleaner, easier job in air conditioning, I found, for minimum wage. So they aren't going to work on a farm. It's going to be 100 degrees here today for just minimum wage. So that often doesn't work. And I see jobs advertised for farms all the time for minimum wage, and they can't find help. And that's why the help is out there. But raise your prices and pay a higher quality person, for the nature of the job, the dirt, the hours, the conditions, etc. Okay, number 3, and again, these are in no particular order, and that is to have really strong boundaries. So, there's women and men in this group, but especially women. I mean, women and men both like to please, but especially us women, we like to please people. When someone says, hey, can you help me? Can you do this or that? We often say sure before we actually figure out if we can do it or not. And then we're resentful because our day is packed with all these favors we said we'd do for other people. So learn to say no. I often say no is the first thing out of my mouth, because I need to say, what happens is when I don't say no, my children and my husband suffer. They're the ones I take the time away from to go fulfill that thing I said yes to. So I only say yes to them. Saying no is a yes to my children and my husband, because I already seem like I don't have enough time with them. So learn to say no first. Oh, Joe, I'm glad you like that, because, men and women, we both have issues with this. We struggle with it. We've got farm friends that need help, and we want to help them too. It doesn't matter who it is. Learn to take care of yourself and your kids and your business first. Sorry, I'm getting other messages on here. Everyone is relating to this. So thanks, you guys. I'm glad you relate to it. You're not a terrible person if you learn to say no. So just do that. Say no first and say, no, I don't think I can commit, but I'll let you know if I can. And then you can come back later. But just say no. Another really important thing, and this is what I call the highest and best use of your time. And that's figuring out that where you should spend your time on the farm. Now, when you first start your farm, you may be doing everything like I was. 10 years ago, I was milking the cow. I was ordering the feed. I was unloading the feed. I was marketing. I was running the farm store. I was doing absolutely everything. I was picking up feed, picking up supplies. So what I want you to do, the best way to track and figure out what is the highest and best use of your time, is to write down everything you do for a week. And I know you're thinking, I don't have time to do that, but this is the way you're going to change your mindset, because you often think, well, I'm just going to do that because I do it faster than that person. And, we're all guilty of that. But if you never give that person a chance to get up to speed doing it, or you just accept that it's going to be slower than you can do it because you're needed elsewhere, you are going to be burnt out. So yeah, my daughter, my youngest, doesn't fold laundry as fast as I do, or as well, but I just put her in charge of that because I've got other things to do. So track what you do for 7 days and then put on a piece of paper and then put a value, a dollar value beside that. For instance, if I'm cleaning my house, that is worth $25 an hour. And if I'm working out in my yard, pulling weeds, that's worth $25 an hour. If I'm going to the feed store and picking up supplies for the barn, that's $15 an hour because I can pay someone to do that. But when I send out a blog post on my farm to a month, it makes me about, $6,000-$7,000 per blog post. And so when I figure up the hours it took me to do that marketing and all the research involved and the connecting with people and talking with customers involved in doing that marketing for that period of time in the month, that made me about $600. So what that showed me is if I'm spending my time driving to the 2 different stores where we get our dairy supplies and our barn supplies, doing this $15 an hour job, and then I don't have time to do my marketing, I keep putting that off. And I hear this from a lot of farmers that they don't have time for marketing. If I put that off, I can't afford to pay someone, that $600 an hour work, only I can do. Only I can identify my ideal customers and communicate with them and craft a marketing email specific to that person. I can't pay someone to do that. No one will do that like the business owner. So that is the highest and best use of my time, which means I've hired a house cleaner. And I heard from a lot of you farmers that after you heard me talk about this the first time, you hired someone to come in and just clean your bathrooms every 2 weeks. Do you know how huge that is? Someone else hired a teenager to come in and fold their laundry. So I encourage you to figure out what job is it that you do that makes you the most money on your farm, and you do that job, and you hire out all those other things that are $15 to $25 an hour. Okay. So that was really eye-opening for me, and I know it'll help you tremendously. And in my blog post that I'll link in here, I give more specifics on how to do that. Number 5 is self-care. Now, this is huge for us ladies, guys too. My husband, I'm always saying, honey, you're working 7 days a week, 16-hour days. You got to stop. He doesn't do enough self-care. So I will schedule appointments for him and I to go get a massage once a month, or just go out for lunch and take 2 hours off and go for a walk, or saddle up our horses. And I'll say, hey, you're going for a ride. You need to do some self-care. So it's women and men both struggle with putting ourselves, caring for ourselves. But I try to make sure I do that. And here's what happened last year. I was burnt out and overwhelmed. I had a lot going on, and I thought I could only do certain things on the farm, I knew it wasn't true, but I thought, oh, I'm just faster, so I'm going to get it done, or I want it done my way. So I was doing way too much. And guess what? I got in an accident on my horse and broke my ankle. And it actually turned out to be the best thing, because I spent the month of June sitting on my couch, realizing with my leg up in the air because it hurt, and it was hard to get around on crutches. It was terrible. But it was wonderful because I stopped, and I couldn't say yes to anything. I had to say no to all those commitments I'd made. It gave me an excuse to do that. And I realized that I never stop in my life. I read books. I actually finished writing my book, and I published my book because I hadn't had time to finish writing it before that. So, I took great care of myself in that 4 weeks that I was on the couch. And I took it as, it was God and the universe saying, you're not taking care of yourself. So I'm going to help you out by giving you a broken ankle so that you could experience what you really need to do. You need to stop and pay attention and take care of yourself. So please do that before you get an accident that forces you to do it. And then the last thing that I adhere to is a very strict schedule. And you may think, how does a strict schedule help you, avoid burnout? But when I know what my calendar is for the day, and I even schedule my downtime, my power hour in the morning, that is on my calendar, because if it's not on there and someone says, hey, can you have an early morning meeting? And I schedule it, then I've lost my self-care, my power hour first thing in the morning. So I schedule everything and I stick to it. And then that gives me a visual reminder to say no, and to schedule those self-care things. When someone says, can you do this? I know that, no, I've got several other things I need to do that day. And it might be time with my daughter. It might be picking her up from school and having a snack and baking chocolate chip cookies with her. But if I stick to that schedule, I'm far more likely to be balanced and nourished mentally and emotionally and physically. I'll schedule my time for yoga class. That's on my calendar. So adhere to that strict schedule. All right. So none of these things happen quickly, usually. And you're not going to do all 6 of these at once. Choose one thing. As a matter of fact, tell me in the comments which thing you're going to start with, because chances are you're not doing all 6 of these things. Because I know I have to struggle. That would be like the perfect person who's doing all these things. And we can get out of balance so quickly. But know that you have these things to go back to and say, wow, I've really let go of my self-care this month because we're super busy. So I'm going to schedule to go get a haircut next week, or get my nails done, or get a foot massage, whatever it might be. So let me know in the comments what you're going to do, which of these 6 things you're going to give a try, or if there's something miraculous that you want to share with us, I'd love to know. But just remember, it's really important to do what you can to care for yourself and avoid burnout, prevent burnout, or deal with it now if it's already happening, because it's too tempting to say at some point, oh, this farm is not worth it. I'm just going to quit. It's not worth working 16, 18-hour days, for not enough money because you haven't got your pricing where it needs to be. And you give up, and our community loses that resource for fresh food. Before we started our farm 10 years ago, we lost our farmer probably 3 times in 5 years. They went out of business. So I know what it's like to have to scramble to find your milk or eggs or chicken that you used to rely on somebody for. So don't let that be you. All right. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Let me see if there's anything I need to address in here. I don't think so. Thanks y'all for being here. Oh, thank you, Maggie, for putting that link to the blog post in there. Take care, everyone. And I look forward to talking to you soon. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.